The real estate market. Oh my.
It's crazy. It's crazy out there.
It's crazy. It's falling.
No, it's not falling.
Well, it feels like the real estate market.
It's going up, up, up.
Right, skyrocketing, which makes it feel like the sky is falling. If you're somebody that's looking to buy a house, it's crazy, or even sell a house. And so what we know, though, after 3 and some odd decades, I was going to say 3 years, no, over 3 decades in the real estate industry, is that although this is admittedly the craziest market I have seen in pretty much, well, my 32 years in the industry. Crazy. And yet it can actually be fun and with the right people. And what I learned to say a really long time ago, not the first year, I didn't have no fun the first year. It was just, well, I was delusional the first year. Who's kidding who? And yet what I've learned is that it can be fun if you know what you're doing, if you know what strategy to employ, if you know how to move forward, even in a crazy market, and if you're willing to adapt, it can still be great. And if it's not fun, if I'm not having fun, hello, Virginia, guess what I do? I go on home, right? Because if it's not fun, it ain't gonna be done. Not by me anyway.
So when you're not having fun at home, where do you go?
Now that is a conversation for the double-decker segment of our business. So the real estate segment is the market is crazy. And yet we thought by answering a few questions that clients have been asking us, whether in person or they pop them onto online, and just maybe give a little bit of, I was going to say comfort. It's still going to be uncomfortable. There is still discomfort in this market, and yet make it just a little bit more fun to navigate what is the case. So the first thing is, don't be delusional. Like, that's number one. Every question I get asked is like, how can we work outside of this market? Well, you can't.
You could drive 3 hours.
Right. If you want it, well, we do. That is one of the things we say a lot, but really all of Canada has done well. One of the things we find ourselves saying frequently to clients is drive till you qualify, especially as a first-time buyer. If you're just wanting to enter the market, you are still more prudent to be in the market than paying for somebody else's house, paying off somebody else's mortgage instead of your own. Maybe it's not going to be the location you would most prefer. Maybe you're going to have to settle for, well, maybe you're going to choose to settle for less house. Maybe you're going to choose to put some more sweat equity into the house. Maybe you're going to choose to do with less rooms. You're going to make some hard choices. For sure in this market, you're going to make choices.
Yeah. And I think one of the choices the first choice is who's going to help you navigate the fast waters of this market. Who's going to help you navigate those, avoid those rocks, those pitfalls? Who's going to help you make sure you've got the mortgage you're qualified for so you can walk in? Because we're finding 60% of properties are selling without any conditions.
None. Zero, type 0 into the chat. Like, if you're listening or even watching the replay, and if you're watching the replay, as you make comments and ask your questions, do hashtag replay. And that way we'll know that you caught us on the replay and that we'll still answer your questions. So you can still keep asking your questions. And one of the questions is exactly that we've had often, and again now, is what's qualification? Like, if I qualify, am I still at risk? If I'm qualified for the mortgage, I go to my mortgage lender, whether it be the bank or a mortgage broker, and that's another show, and you can catch amazing Life's Inside Track where we talk about what kind of lender you want to deal with for your situation. So it's not a carte blanche answer.
Now, Virginia says 0. I think she's saying 0 conditions. Now, what about if you're looking at a property that's on a well and septic system, and there's the house, right? There's 3 inspections you could have done. And really, what is the cost? The cost of a septic system? 30, 35, 40 grand, depending on the septic. A well could be $10,000 if you need to drill a new well. And what about properties with, foundation issues, cracks, that kind of stuff? So that's another reason you want an experienced agent with you. And some of the things are under the ground. You can't see them. Some of them are under the snow. And so our buyers are saying, okay, I'll take the risk. I know that on the outward side, a septic system's 30, 35 grand. If that's the problem, I'll pay for it. So knowing what you're willing to take in the risk of not having a condition, and then knowing sometimes you can have conditions. It depends on how many offers. It depends on your purchase price, like how high you're going to go. There's so many variables as to whether you have conditions or not. But for the most part,
well, for approximately
the winning offers are unconditional.
Right, 60%. So that's a number worth remembering. It's in the last year, it's sat anywhere between 40 and 60%. Now in condominiums, it's a little bit higher, so it may be 35 to 50% that we've had over the last year. Oh my goodness. And now all of a sudden, you're right, Lucy, if we start talking lease land, vacant land, securing mortgages, mobile homes.
All more difficult.
All are extremely more difficult. And so I think that's one of the things that comes back to having somebody that's had experience. I mean, mortgage lending, and who to go to for which type of property.
Yeah.
Right? There is fewer options the more unique the property is and the harder it is to lend on that type of property. Mm-hmm. So in that case, you may not even have the choice. It may not be a wise choice to go in with no conditions, mm-hmm. unless you can pay cash, unless you've got somebody in the background that can stroke a check if the financing doesn't come together, right?
Yeah, I know. Interesting. There's also lenders that are more likely to lend on something that has 5 or 10 or 15 acres than something that is on a smaller, or some don't like particular towns or particular rural property over a city property. And so mortgage agent is a huge help and assistance in this kind of situation.
Yes,
now, Virginia
Lucy.
asks, Virginia asks, is this a good time to renovate a kitchen with material costs so high, not in a hurry to sell, and would like to enjoy a new kitchen for the few years before we're ready to move? Again, it depends on your kitchen. If you've got a 2 or 3 year old kitchen and it's white, and you decide, I don't want a white kitchen, I want a wood colored or dark kitchen, you may not make your money out of that.
No, it's not that you may not. Let's be real. Like, one thing we promise all the time is to be real. So the answer is you won't make your money out. That doesn't mean you ought not do it. The conversation always is, how do you want to use your money? Do you want to use it for that and make it feel like a vacation that vanishes? You only have the memories left. So if that's the case, then go ahead and do it. If you're asking us as realtors when to renovate a kitchen, it has to do more, if you want it for resale benefit, even if the costs are higher today, to answer Virginia's question specifically as we can, even with the costs higher today, if you enjoy it for 2 years and you get something that's trendy, and I know you're talking a 1960s beauty, those, and it's
I'm
not
a
quite,
1960s original too, Virginia. Do I need some remodeling? Renovations?
Well, let's not go down that road right now, because that would be a much longer than 5 or 10 minute conversation.
Yes, it's well worth changing in this market because you're going to get the benefit of enjoying that new kitchen. Sometimes you're making a little bit of floor plan adjustment because it suits more today's day and age than the 1960s, where maybe there was more division and
more
smaller rooms. You could open it up. People are loving that, and it will demand even more money for your house when it comes time. So
Right.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing to do. Why not enjoy it? If you've got the money, go ahead.
And the fact it costs a little bit more than it may down the road, there's no guarantee that the price is going to go down for the cost of renovations, or that
No.
materials are going to get that much easier to get anyway. So really the moment to do it is, as Yetta always says and Ken says, time your life. Time your life is more important. Time your life is way more important than even timing the market. Because as you time your life, when you're at peace with the decisions you're making, the market really does take care of itself. I mean, the money is certainly important, making wise financial decisions. But if you have no peace of mind, if you're going bonkers, or not even going bonkers, where you just don't have the peace of mind you want, or the calm and ease and joy in life and flow, then it's more important probably to go after that, which we're going to call intangible, but really, isn't it more tangible? Because it affects everything else in your life.
Yeah, and if there's a specific thing you're thinking, we're happy to discuss it. If you're thinking, I want to renovate this or renovate that, should I paint this, should I change the flooring out, whatever, send us a photo, and in a few minutes we can have a quick discussion, and from our experience know whether that's going to be a valuable thing to do or not do, really, right?
Right, and a valuable thing to do in this market.
Yes.
One of my clients just yesterday said, she sent me a picture, did exactly what Ken asked. So absolutely, you're welcome to post the pictures. If you're not shy, you can post them right in the comments and go, what would you do? You can private message us, or you can send us an email at ken@deckerteam.com or yetta@deckerteam.com. Spell it any way you want.
No, not any way.
Okay, there's two ways. You can spell it YETTA@deckerteam.com or JETTE@deckerteam.com. Just don't combine the two. Anyway, and if you send that photo, we'll be able to give you a sense of whether in this market it's a wise renovation. So this particular client sent me a picture of a countertop, and the countertop had a burn hole probably the size of my head. And it was
not all the way through, just through the top surface.
Just through the top surface. And she said, so I have to replace it before we put it on the market? And the answer was no, because, well, I had a follow-up question, let's be fair. My follow-up question was, does the rest of the kitchen warrant replacing? Or is the rest of the kitchen exactly as somebody would want it today? In all probability, is it a trendy, current kitchen, or is it an outdated kitchen? And she said, well, the kitchen's outdated. I said, well, then spending the money on the countertop just means that piece of countertop, that money you just invested, say it's $1,200 for a basic countertop and $3,000-4,000 for an inexpensive granite, or the other one, quartz. In that case, you've really taken that money and thrown it into the garbage dump. Because if somebody is thinking of replacing the kitchen, it won't matter whether it's a nasty kitchen countertop or just not to their taste, or even if it's beautiful, if they've got to replace the rest of the kitchen, that counter is going to go because you'll reconfigure.
Right. So Andrea says, turning my basement into rental property, how long approximately does it take? Well, it depends if you need building permits for the type of, if you're doing anything structural, plumbing, electrical, usually you're going to need some building permits. And so it could take 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say 3
permit.
to 6 months.
Yeah. And then trying to find a contractor. We have some contacts there for you. And yeah, it can be a great thing to do, increase your ability for income, or pay your mortgage. And I've seen people buy duplex because they can't find a single family home in their price range, but they can buy an older duplex. We just sold one in Kempville recently,
like last week.
And then the rental on the one side is helping them pay the mortgage, and yes, they have to renovate it, but they're okay. They can spend some money on their side that they're going to live in, and so that's going to work out great for them.
Right, exactly. And I think maybe just before we leave that, and I know we're losing time here, we're out of town, but we're going to keep going for a minute. as it relates to the renovations that Andrea is talking about, it's not just the time for the physical, how much time does it take to make back the money? And for the cost of the renovation. And it really depends on what is required in the renovation in the first place. How much income can you earn from the property? And does it in a single and is it the expected type of property in a given area? So if you're in a single family home area, whether it has a potential investment property in the basement or an in-law suite, or it doesn't necessarily make it worth any more money because it's not an income producing property.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily increase the value of the property just because you finished it with a kitchen and a bathroom versus and a living space versus just living space and regular finished basement.
But then sometimes people want that and they want the extra income that's coming in, so it can increase the value. So it's a little hit and miss, and we certainly would do that on a one-off. And
one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, one-off. That means one-on-one.
Okay.
Brianna says, welcome, by the way, Brianna.
Yeah, it's been a while. Nice to see you, my friend.
People are losing out to offers without conditions. 100% they are. So how can a buyer compete with that? Well, first of all, make sure that your financing is solid. You can send the property and a sample offer to the lender ahead of time to be basically pre-approved for that property. And then the other thing you can do is you can book a home inspection, a pre-inspection, if you're not feeling comfortable in taking out an inspection clause. You can do them ahead of time. Just know that if you don't win, you've invested $500 to $1,500, depending on how many inspections you've done.
And what inspections are required. Do you need a well inspection? Do you need a septic inspection? Is it only a building inspection? There's obviously a lot more involved with country property. And then what Ken said near the beginning, he was talking about calculate your risk. Can you afford the risk at a certain price? Almost no matter what you find, is it still a good choice? At what price isn't it?
Some have like a trusted contractor that they love, and they bring that person through with them just to see what it would cost to do any renovations, and to have the contractor's eye to see if there's a crack in the foundation or settling in the ceiling, or leaking or moisture. There's things they can see on the outside, right? Not on the outside of the building, but outside of getting up in the attic and things like that.
And if you have a realtor that's been in the industry for a long time and that's been a builder or that's done a lot of renovations, we don't want to say we're building inspectors. And so right here, right now, because this is like on being recorded and this is all over the place, the challenge becomes we don't want to pretend we're inspectors. And in the next breath, we've seen a lot. So if it is a blatant issue or even a quasi hidden issue, we're going to see it. We're going to know what it is that we're looking at. I mean, how many times have we encouraged clients not to even go in when there is a crack in the brick? We're watching what that crack even looks like. Sometimes it's no big deal. It's surface, it's no problem. And other times that is a structural issue and it's screaming structure. But to the unknown observer, you might not see that.
Yeah, for sure. So Yetta.
Yes.
What's the big advice? What's the one thing, if you've watched this, if you're watching it on the replay, what's the one thing that people should take away from this 15-minute chat around real estate and the market and the craziness of it?
Get a good counselor. Get somebody that knows the business better than you do, that isn't afraid to navigate, that knows what strategies to put in place to give you as an upper hand as you can get.
Yes.
There is no assurance for sure. And then probably, I got to say this, determine the value of the home to you. And if it's not that high and you know and your realtor knows it's going to sell for higher, probably don't put an offer in, because all you do in that case is drive the price up. If you want to drive it up, it's not a good idea if you're a buyer. So determine the value of the home to you. And if it's only 10 or 15 or 20,000 more than asking, and it's well priced. If it's not well priced, this all conversation that I'm about to say is off. But if it's well priced and you're only willing to go a tiny bit higher, maybe don't. That's harsh truth, eh?
Yeah. And maybe it's not that you need to buy, maybe you need to sell. And you might be thinking, oh, if the market's that hot, why in the world would I get a real estate agent? That just makes no sense to pay them, because it's going to sell in 2 days anyways, right? But we're seeing properties sell. We've sold properties anywhere from, you know, $20,000-$30,000 over to $300,000 over asking price. And a lot of that comes with marketing, negotiating skills, and all kinds of things that the average seller is not prepared or knowledgeable to do, because
don't have access
it's
to
not
do.
their profession.
Right, but don't even have access
Right.
to the networks to be able to make that happen.
So my big takeaway is, if you have a home to sell, in today's market, you need a realtor, you need a great experienced realtor, even more than you did a few years ago. It's so important, because you don't want to leave tens and twenties and $50,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because you put it up at a certain price that you thought it was worth, and then you took what came in and you go, oh, this is great. And it might feel great, but not great if you missed out on 100 grand.
Right. So if you have more questions, keep typing them. We will continue to comment. We will continue to connect with you. You can reach out to us privately, and we will answer your personal questions. Make a list. We can do it. And or watch a bunch of the inside tracks. Have an amazing day.